have an actual example of a country just trying to do martial law, enact martial law in the past year, and it failed precisely because people went to the streets. South Korea. Look at what happened in South Korea. So no, we're not going to be hiding in our homes because we're afraid of them enacting martial law.
They're not talking about you, hun. They're talking about us. They're talking about Black Americans.
And the one thing that I did not think of is that this talk of pardoning Derek Chauvin is bait to get Black people out into the streets, to be confronted by police officers who Donald Trump thinks should have immunity. And so that Donald Trump and these police officers can beat and kill Black people in the streets. And Donald Trump can point at that and say, look at this, I don't have any other choice but to impose martial law nationwide.
South Korea is a racially homogenous country. That's why it's different. In Hannah Arendt's book, The Origins of Totalitarianism, she talks about the rise in anti-Semitism in 19th century Europe as it relates to the population of Jews. And she mentions, while she agrees that the issue of anti-Semitism and racism is super complicated, she did notice that when the Jewish population got above 5%, that's when the trouble started. Because when it got to that point, Jews became more visible, and therefore they were easier to scapegoat. In a racially homogenous country, things don't quite work the same way. In a racial, ethnic, and religiously homogenous country, things work a little differently. There's no one group in South Korea that they've consistently scapegoated, recently enslaved, or forced to live under some kind of apartheid. Their country is different. They don't have a vast system of police brutality directed at one particular group like we do. Also, the police in South Korea aren't nearly as militarized as our police are. They aren't nearly as violent and belligerent. And they don't have an origin of being a slave catcher. Modern day police in the United States evolved from slave catchers. So you have an institution whose foundation was based on being slave catchers, and you're wondering why they brutalize Black people. It's different. Because it's a different country, a different culture, a different racial and ethnic makeup. So to sit here and say that, oh, well, martial law, they tried to declare martial law in South Korea, but the people took to the streets and it didn't happen. It's different. It's different for us and our police that we have here. At this point, I'm hearing this from people who are very aware of the levers of power and how institutional racism and systemic oppression works. And this seems to be a blind spot for some of you. I'm going to need you to do a little better.